Hello, I'll do a quick review of the starting squads. The leader squad first. You get 2 max life points, recover 1 additional life point after each battle. To clarify, you can recover up to the maximum life points you have, which for example here is 6. So if you have 4 out of 6, you can recover 2, but it doesn't add to the maximum beyond the 2 life points at the start, so it doesn't have much long-term value unless you're leaking like crazy. And if you are, you probably just die. You'd rather take a squad that can help prevent the leak in the first place. So this is one of the bad ones in my opinion. The gathering squad. 2 squad size and 2 deployment limit. There's 2 ways you can get value out of this squad. First, you don't have to buy items for squad size or deployment limit, because you start with a lot of it. Second, it allows you to use summoners better, since they don't occupy spaces that can be used by actual operators. Summoners still kind of fall off, except Link, obviously, later into the run, because you start to have a really large squad, and then even with the gathering squad, you start running out of deployment limits, but it's decent at the start. It also has uses if you're playing something like 4 stars only, or some lower rarity combination, because you just need a lot of more operators in the field. It's especially useful when you don't have all of your upgrades unlocked from the cross-culture routing, because you gain deployment limit and squad limit from here. Until you have them, I'd even recommend you give this a try. Makes it less annoying to get through the early game when you're not stuck with all of the squad limit relics walked and without the size upgrades. Next, the support squad. You gain 20 ingots and 2 hope. This is somewhat decent. The extra hope lets you recruit a 6 star even if you're playing on the highest difficulty, and the 20 ingots can help you get value in some shop or other. It's a bit RNG because it depends on what items you get in the shop. You might not want to buy everything, and it doesn't offer any direct combat power, though the 2 hope is still worth it. This is one of the better squads. Next is the spearhead. This is the best version of spearhead we've ever had. The life point is set to 1, but it's talking about the current life point, not the maximum life points, so it's set to 1 out of 6. And because of a buff we have in the cross-cultural comparison, you can very quickly recover those life points. When life points are not greater than 3, earning perfect, which means not leaking, grants 1 life point. So if you start with spearhead, you're going to get your lives back very quickly, and you gain 50% attack and health, like usual. I actually wouldn't recommend it, despite how good it is for me, and despite the fact that I use it myself. Hope is too valuable when you're playing with higher rarity. You're better off taking something that gives you more hope, so you can get more 6 stars. The 15% attack buff is notable when I'm using 4 stars, but I think it has less value to higher rarity, since they have higher scalings. It is worth noting that this 15% modifies the base value. So if you have an operator with 100 attack, and this modifies it to 115 attack, and then you have a skill that gives 100% attack, they will end up with 230 attack, not 215. So it increases the power of other buffs, but it's still not worth it on higher rarity, I believe. All of the tactical squads we can group together. It's the same as in IS2, but a bit nerfed, so it's RNG. So same as in IS3, I guess. Guards and vanguards. Operators cost 2 less hope to recruit, 1 less hope to promote, and have a greatly increased chance of being randomly promoted. This is written very vaguely. What it means is that when you get a recruit, you have a chance of having an E2 operator available there. It doesn't mean that your operators will randomly be promoted when they sit in your squad. Poorly written, but aside from that, all 4 of these are fairly decent, because they give you a lot of hope. If you just make sure to take the one that matches whatever 6 star you want to start, you have a lot more hope than usual, especially if you get a few lucky recruits, and that can get you a better team overall. Generally, I have a pretty smooth runs with this. At least with 4 stars I struggle, and that's why I stick with Spearhead. The extra stats help more. But for high rarity, I would just use these squads. I think they're the most reliable ones from the standard ones. Next, special training squad. You start with 3 objective shields. That's the shield health here that doesn't recover, and promoting operators will not require hope. 3 shields isn't really worth anything. That's just a random node encounter, and promoting operators not costing hope is helpful because it's universal, but it's better if you have some specific operator you want to start with and focus on that. I think the tactical squads can provide more value. First class squad, this one's a bit weird. Gain an additional advanced recruitment voucher during initial recruitment, and 5-star promoted operators have a greatly increased chance of appearing. So this works kind of like the tactical squads, but it's specifically to do with 5-star operators. I guess this is a buff for 5 stars, because they were a bit weak across IS, and it works pretty decently for that. You can get a ton of 5 stars very easily, save a ton of hope, but if you're more relying on 6 stars, which is likely because that's what most people have built, you can't get the same value from it, because it could promote a bunch of 5 stars that you don't have at E2, and then it's just useless. So this is good, but only worth it if you want to use a lot of 5 stars, and you actually have a lot of 5 stars promoted. And on to the 3 IS4 unique squad. Eternal Hunting Squad. You gain 2 max life points. Not earning a perfect will additionally add 1 collapse value. Earning a perfect will subtract 1 collapse value. A perfect means not leaking. The collapse value is the difficulty increase between the levels. This is good if you don't want to deal with the buffs, since you can completely suppress them, even on the highest difficulties. I don't like it because I don't find the buffs that threatening most of the time. I'd rather take extra hope or extra stats from Spearhead. But it is functional if you don't want to deal with the buffs. Life Prioritizing Squad. Start with 3 random runes. Clairvoyance will also predict runes. Clairvoyance is the thing between levels that shows you some rune. Sometimes it can give you a debuff instead, but that doesn't happen if you have this. This is essentially the best possible start you can get, because you can get some broken rune combo that wins the game instantly, before you even enter a single stage. If you start with a human rune and a migration rune, for example, you just summon 4 boss keys on the first floor and then you've just won. It's like you have 4 extra floors to go through, and you have so much power by the end of the first floor you steamroll everything else. So that's great when it happens, but half the time it will give you either runes that are only useful in the end game, like the attack speed ones, or completely useless runes that don't do anything for you, or runes that can be combined. So it is great, and it can give you some very broken things, but it is very RNG. It's only worth using if you like gambling. I suppose it's fine if you're confident in your opening, since the early floors on IS4 are the hardest. And finally, Scientific Thinking Squad. Start with Anti-Interference Index at 0, but entering a new floor will increase it by 2. This one is kind of weird. So, on lower difficulties you have 3 devices. On higher difficulties you have 2 devices. So logically it's better on higher difficulties, because you lose less from taking it. Good. But higher difficulty also means the fights are harder on lower floors. The way it works out is that you lose 2 devices on the first floor, then get 2 devices back on the second floor. So you're even by the second floor, and third, fourth, fifth, sixth floor, you gain value from it. I haven't had much success with it. I don't really like it for 2 reasons. The first floor fights can be very dangerous, and if you don't know what fight you're walking into, depending on what operators you're using, it might just kill you if you don't have the right skills set up. On top of that, I want to take as many fights as possible on the first floor. If I can't do that before the shop so I can buy the most stuff from it, I feel like I'm losing value by running the Scientific Thinking Squad. And then I only start to gain that value back once I'm already deep into the hard fights on floor 3. Harder early game scales better towards the late game, but personally I don't like it. I think having a solid early game produces a better late game for me. That's all of the squads. Bye for now.